introducing Taylor for her presentation, her senior capstone presentation. This is my second year getting to do that. My senior advisee last year is also sitting here. Sammy, if you hadn't seen him in the back, can we give Sammy a nice round? So good having that awesome human being in the building. It's a little different between the 2 years, between working with Sammy and working with Taylor. Both equally wonderful and equally amazing. Thank you, Albie. But in any case, part of as all the rest of you are moving your way through peak, and all of you getting ready to be seniors in your own time and place, one of the ideas behind the senior project is to allow our seniors to divest themselves fully, immerse themselves into a project with such depth that it allows them an opportunity to see what they might be interested in well beyond their time here at Peak. And some of those projects go really far in terms of determining what their inevitable future lives, vocationally and otherwise, might look like. We heard that in 2 presentations already this week. But I don't know if it's ever been true for any presentation that I've seen here at Peak more than with Taylor. Taylor came into this whole entire process knowing and understanding more about her subject than I could even ever imagine. Working with her was unbelievably easy in the sense that Taylor is such a self-starter, is so invested in what she's doing, and represents absolutely the best of what Peak is all about. So as you go to watch her presentation, all of you who will be doing your own senior presentations in some numbers of years coming forth from this, this is what senior projects are all about. It's about the idea of fully delving into a subject, finding out about it, and then finding out and discovering more about yourself through it. And as such, I couldn't give Taylor any bigger welcome than that. So with that, give her a
Hi, so for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Taylor Horvath, and my senior project was about exploring the equine musculoskeletal system through the veterinary field. For anybody who doesn't know, equine refers to the family that horses are in, so burros, zebras are in it, mules, donkeys, etc. And musculoskeletal is the muscles and bones in an animal. First off, I'd like you to raise your hand if you think you know what this is. Rudy's got it, maybe. Okay. Now, keep your hand up if you said it was a bone. All right. And keep your hand up if you think it was a horse bone. Pretty easy based off of my pictures here, right? And keep your hand up if you thought it was a rib. All right, everybody with their hand up is already smarter than Travis. Perfect. So going into that, we're going to play a little bit of a game. You guys might have noticed the papers underneath your seat. Don't touch them yet. Okay? Sorry, those little entities. We're going to play that in a second, but I want to go over some fun facts with the horse skeleton to kind of get you ready for that. And if you pay attention, you just might get your answers right more than your peers. Okay? All right. First off, horses have 205 bones in their skeletal system, while humans have 206. That one bone difference is the collarbone, which is right here. Humans have a collarbone, horses do not. A horse skeleton is 40% of its body weight. Your average horse weighs about 1,000 pounds. That'd be about 400-pound skeleton, which is a lot. Older breeds of horses can actually have less vertebrae and ribs than some newer breeds. Your vertebrae is right here. Well, it's your whole back, but specifically it would be here. And the femur in the horse is the longest bone in their body. All right, now you guys can get your papers. If anybody in the back doesn't have a paper, there are some on the table. All right, please be quiet so we can get through this. on the horse, and I'm calling somebody to come give me the answer, okay? All right. Write down where you think the mandible is, which is circled in red on the horse. For anybody who doesn't know, the mandible is right here on a human. Give you guys a second. We're going to get through this fast. All right, raise your hand if you think you know where the mandible is. Muslima, do you want to come up and point to where you think the mandible is? Awesome! So she got it right. That's where the mandible is on a horse. Here's a couple of ways a mandible can look. This is half of a mandible. This is a full mandible. And back here, I have a really, really big mandible. All right. Your next bone is going to be your scapula. You can see it labeled on the human. It's this bone right in the back here. Rudy, sorry you don't get to get called on. You know too much. All right, raise your hand if you think you know where the scapula is. Ooh, lots of options. Ugo seems very enthusiastic. Why don't you come on up, Ugo? This one. Good job. So Ugo got it right. Here's what a scapula looks like in a horse. Flat, just like humans. Here it is labeled. All right. Humerus. For anybody who doesn't know, humerus is right here in a human body. You can try as hard as you want, Rudy, but I'm not going to pick you. All right, raise your hand if you think you know where the humerus is. Options. Molly. You guys are cheaters. You know where everything is. So close. So that is the radius and ulna, which is actually right here. Your humerus is right there. And this is what it looks like in a horse. Yes, they are real bones. All right. Femur. For anybody who doesn't know, it's right here in your leg. It's labeled with the human skeleton. All right, raise your hand if you know where the femur is. Me? Yep, in the gray hoodie. Come on up. So close. So that is one above. It was the one above. So that's the tibia and fibula. See, which is right here. The femur is a little bit above that. And
Yes, I got it right.
this is a femur. All right, Cinnamon. Sure. I don't have any more guessing games, but here are the rest of them labeled. If you guys want to look, I'll go through real quick. Radius and ulna, we talked about. Right here. The carpal bones are in your wrist. Your metacarpal bones are in your fingers. Your phalanges are your toes. And your pelvis is right here. And to show you some comparative anatomy, here's a color-coded picture of what a horse and human skeleton looks like if it were lined up to each other. All right, you guys can put your papers away. We're done with that. You guys did great. Cinnamon. Thank you. All right, so going into my background, I had always been the kid who loved to collect bones outside and, to the reluctance of my parents, bring them home. So naturally, I got the most squeamish senior advisor, Stephen, who can't even look at blood. That's perfect. But I really what a skeleton looked like, how it got put together, all of that. And then another inspiration behind this project is the Farby Horse Rescue. I've been volunteering there for about 8 years now, and it, contributed two really big things to this project. Number one, it developed my love of horses. I learned how to ride, I learned how to bond with horses, I worked with some horses really closely, and I just really developed a passion for that animal. Number two, I got to see a lot of medical emergencies, where horses needed, bandaging or anything like that, and it spanned from, horses with minor cuts to, unfortunately, having to put some animals down. I knew going into this project that I wanted to do something with horses and bones and, being in the veterinary field and treating those wounds. So I developed some goals. First of all, I wanted to apply my knowledge of the musculoskeletal system to the veterinary field. For anybody who doesn't know, and you guys are gonna not like me for disclosing this information, but seniors in their first semester have to write a 20+ page paper about their project. And I decided to write mine going through every single bone and the major muscle groups in a horse's musculoskeletal system. Second of all, I wanted to learn about bone assembly through my final product, which I promise I will go over later, but I'm going to skip over a little bit now. And I wanted to learn from both veterinarians and farriers. For anybody who doesn't know, a farrier is somebody who works on a horse's foot. They put shoes on, they trim them, they can make sure that they're nice and comfy and not lame. Lameness means that they're limping or there's something medically wrong with their leg. So the first person I decided to shadow to learn a lot from my project, I shadowed 5 different main veterinary and farrier facilities. The first person I shadowed was Ingrid Spiker. She's a certified farrier in Conifer, Colorado, and I spent a whole week with her. During that time, I got to watch a lot of client interactions and watch her trim and shoe a bunch of different horses. Then I also learned a lot about bone assembly and worked on my final product with her. Something that was really special about being with Ingrid is I got to go to a Rocky Mountain Farriers Association clinic in Longmont, where I did a full leg dissection on a horse. You can kind of see a picture of that here. And I have my scalpel and all the different tools that I've used for that. I also just learned a lot from the clinic in whole and had a whole new appreciation for farriers. And then I also got to do a clinic through Mobile Vet, which was supposed to bring veterinarians and farriers together to work alongside each other. After Ingrid, I shadowed Mobile Veterinary Services. There, I specifically shadowed Shane Baird, who ran and started Mobile Veterinary Services, and Kate Bear. Not to be confused, they're 2 different last names. So, something that was really unique about Mobile Veterinary Services is that it's a completely ambulatory clinic, which means that nobody brings any animals to the clinic. They drive out and do house calls to everybody. I got to see a lot of different things there. You can see in my far picture to the left, they were doing some dental work called floating. Then I have teeth x-rays. I got to help bandage a horse with lacerations on all 4 legs. And I did a lot of horse stuff there, which was super helpful, and they're down in Wheat Ridge. Then I shadowed Aspen Creek Veterinary Hospital in Conifer. I shadowed a couple different vets there. First, I shadowed Dr. Shannon, who's on the left top. She's primarily a large animal vet, so horses, llamas, livestock, stuff like that. I got to do some ambulatory calls for her, as well as work on an emergency call with a llama who had cut its cheek open. Then I got to work with Dr. Nicole. She's at the bottom there with the pony. She does large animal and small animal. So I got to do a lot of dog and cat stuff with her and, talk to the owners and talk through vaccines and stuff like that. She was super fun to work with. Here's a little picture of some newborn kittens I got to help vaccinate, which was super fun. And then Dr. Brett Setzer, which is right here, he does a lot of exotic animals. And fun fact, he is the only vet I've met who actually works on chickens. So if your flock is having an issue, you can bring in one of your chickens and he will diagnose the whole flock, which I thought was pretty interesting. I got to work with him on an emergency where a dog had cut part of its neck in a dog fight, so that was super interesting. I had a lot of fun at Aspen Creek, and one of the most important parts of it to me was the community there was amazing. Everybody was super supportive, and there was not a single person that I disliked at all. After them, I shadowed Leslie Harrison. She's in Nathrop. She owns Peak Veterinary Services, but she works solo and does primarily ambulatory calls. Something that was really special about working with her is I got to work with all different kinds of livestock. You can see some sheep over on this side. I got to ultrasound and preg check ewes. Ewes are female sheep, for anybody who doesn't know. She's doing some dental work here, but the most important part about working with Leslie is I got to work with this horse on the side here. He's a 4-month-old foal named Fifth. Now, what was really special about Fifth is he had an extra toe. So horses, through evolution, they started out being about this big, and they had 5 toes. Eventually, the middle 3 fused, and the other 2 became vestigial, which means they don't use them anymore, and they grew up until eventually we get our horse hoof that looks like this. Now, somehow, Fifth had an evolutionary gene to grow an extra toe, and that he did. So we x-rayed him to see, what it looked like before we could decide a plan of action. You can see that top left, he had all of the same bones in his extra toe that he had in his foot, just miniaturized, which was really crazy. Now, we were concerned about his bones causing arthritis or fusing, or you can see there's a little tail there that's an unattached ligament. So we decided to go ahead and remove it, and I have a picture of the x-ray after we removed it right underneath. Now, there was another really special thing about this toe. First of all, it's very, very rare to see something like this. The vet I was working with, Leslie, is about 60 years old, and she's never seen anything like it in her life, and most vets never will. I got to take pictures of Fifth's leg before it was removed. I videotaped the whole entire surgery and helped prep. And then I got x-rays of before and after, and then I also got the removed toe from surgery to do a dissection on and also send to my taxidermist to get the bones. This was really special because there's not really any information of a case from start to finish of something like this out yet. So that was really special to me, and I look forward to doing that over the summer. Now, while I was at all these veterinary clinics, I had a lot of spare time between clients or on lunch breaks or when I came home, kind of just sitting there waiting. And during that time, I decided to write an anatomy journal, which you can see some pictures of here. Each page took me about an hour, and so far I have 36 pages, so about 36 hours of work into this journal. I plan on finishing it through the summer and publishing it. Now, you can see these are the tarsal and carpal bones, which are your wrist and ankle bones. Here I have a thoracic limb, which is basically the front leg of a horse, skeleton and muscle. I have skull, and I have more tarsal bones over there. So this was really fun for me, and I really found out that I have a passion for, anatomy illustration. Now, that leads me to the second part of my project. I wrote this, and I wrote my paper, and I really, gained a lot of knowledge of the musculoskeletal system and brought in my passion of bones. So during my project, at the start of it actually, I had this huge idea, and I was like, I'm going to reassemble this entire horse skeleton, and I'm going to 3D print the bones I don't have, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be standing, and I was all enthusiastic about it, and then I was like, wait a second. I don't know how nor do I own a 3D printer. So I was like, okay, I'll find one, it's fine. I didn't do that. Then I was like, okay, I'm only gonna make half of the skeleton. Then I saw that I had 350 hours of shadowing veterinarians and farriers during my project. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that either. And what I settled on was assembling some legs with Ingrid Spiker, the farrier I talked about earlier. Now, I'll show them to you now. I know that these look really clean, but I want to stress that these are real bone that have been cleaned by a professional taxidermist. This is a hind leg right here, and you can see it's assembled with tubing so that it can articulate. And here is the tibia and fibula that we were talking about earlier, which are about right here. Then you have your tarsal bones, which are about your ankle bones. And then this is called your cannon bone or your metatarsal bones, which means toe bones for humans. And then down here are some bones that are only unique to horses or other animals of like, but not in humans, which is the long pastern, short pastern, and coffin bone, which essentially make up the hoof. Here I have a front leg. Here's your radius and ulna, your carpal bones, which are in the wrist. Again, metatarsal bones, long pastern, short pastern, and coffin bone. Now, what's really important about being able to see and take part in creating these assemblies is two things. First of all, I plan on going to vet school eventually once I get through undergraduate, and being able to know exactly what the bones look like underneath the skin is so helpful in a myriad of ways. Now, the second reason is that if a horse has some strange ailment and nobody can figure out why it's limping or why it passed away, being able to dissect it and look at the bones gives you kind of an insight to what happened. So you can see here that this bone kind of has two little things sticking out. Those are not supposed to be here. This here and here is completely all arthritis. Anything here that's bumpy is arthritis. So obviously this horse had some physical issues that were causing a lot of arthritis. It also could have been really old. But if you have a horse that's limping and nobody can figure out why, and it passes away, and you look at its skeleton and you figure out something that was wrong with it, being able to bring that in later when you see the same symptoms in a live horse makes such a difference to the scientific field. I'd also just like to touch on that it is really hard to get your hands on clean, untouched, and pretty much unbroken horse bones. First of all, you have to send them to a taxidermist, which is super expensive, but each of these sets are worth about $500 each. So I have about $1,000 worth of bones sitting in front of me. And a full assembled skeleton costs about $25,000 to $30,000. So just let that sink in for a second. Now, I'd just like to show you guys a couple of my other bones. I talked about the coffin bone right here. Here's a bigger one. And it goes right in the hoof here. It doesn't fit. I had to pry it out and I'm never getting it back in. But here's what the hoof capsule looks like. And this is what you see as a hoof on a horse. And it's made of the same thing that your fingernails are made of. Fun fact. I also have some skulls here, which I will kind of bring out. They're kind of heavy. This one belongs to a draft horse, which is essentially an extra big horse. It's a type of breed. But have you guys ever seen the Budweiser horses? Yeah. Maybe? Alright, those are draft horses. So, I'm trying to block you here. This thing is very large, as you can see. Now I have a smaller skull. This one is about the average size of a horse skull to give you a little bit of comparison. It looks a lot smaller. Alright. I have a lot of people that I need to thank for this project. I couldn't have done it without the connections that I had. First, I'd like to thank Amy Berger. She is at the Platte Ranch in Fairplay, and she supplied a lot of the bones for me. And so this skull is from her, and my femur was from her, and first of all, just being able to keep those, I'm so honored because they were her horses and they mean a lot to her. But also just being able to show you guys, like, kind of a little bit of my passion into it. Even if you're completely disgusted, I won't be offended. So I would really like to thank her first and foremost. She made it possible. Then Steven, of course, he was my primary advisor during this time, and he just really helped me organize all my scrambled thoughts and aspirations into a cohesive project. So thank you, Steven. Then, of course, my parents, they really, wouldn't have been possible without them because they let me bring all of the bones home. I don't really know why, but they did, and I'm really thankful for it. And then Ingrid Spiker, she helped me assemble this entire thing and really, gave me the passion to pursue this. Leslie Harrison, Aspen Veterinary Clinic and Mobile Veterinary Clinic, the Rocky Mountain Farriers Association and Dusty Franklin, who was the speaker at the Rocky Mountain Farriers Association Clinic, Julie Maurer and JJ McGill for letting me stay at their houses. If I wasn't able to stay somewhere in Denver during shadowing, it would not have been possible. And then, of course, Travis Aldridge and the Peak School. Travis really, helps me get my project moving forward with his class, and of course the school made this all possible. I am taking this project pretty much into the rest of my life. I plan on going to CSU and majoring in animal sciences, and after that, I plan on going to vet school. So, all of this really started that off for me. I made a lot of connections through my project. Pretty much every vet office I left told me that if I ever needed anything to call them, and that's super valuable. So thank you so much everybody for listening. So once arthritis develops on a bone, you can't really get it off. There are some medicines to help prevent further growth of arthritis. One specifically is called Adequin. It's injected intramuscularly into the neck. But yeah, unfortunately, once a horse has arthritis, there's not really a way to stop that. Rudy?
Are you just gonna focus on the whole broad topic of the horse science, or are you just gonna focus on special parts of the horse?
For school?
Yeah.
I don't really know yet. I have a lot of different directions I can go with it. For anybody who doesn't know, when you have your vet degree, it technically covers any animal. So I could go work at a zoo, I could work with cats and dogs, I could work with horses. Eventually I do want to land at horses, but I'm thinking about going into the military and working with dogs first. So, does that answer your question, Rudy?
Yeah.
Okay. Johnny?
Why is a coffin bone called a coffin bone?
I have no idea, I'll be honest. It's also referred to scientifically as P3. Not as interesting though.
Where do you source these bones? How do you get them?
So, horse bones are really hard to get sometimes, but Amy Berger out at the Platte Ranch, she has 71 horses and 8,000 acres, and there's a lot of people who, believe in, letting the animal go back to nature, and so her horses, she doesn't bury them, she just leaves them for, nature to take its course, coyotes to eat them, and so she does have a kind of graveyard pasture with a bunch of skeletons. Travis?
You described a bunch of different really cool experiences with different vets. Can you talk about the one that you think stood out to you the most and why?